Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual Parent Connect session. My name is Robert Ortiz, and I'm the Director of Family Engagement for College and Career. And I sit on the Road to College and Career team at the Central Management Office. I'm excited to welcome you to our first virtual session, which is titled Connecting College to Career.
Hi, I'm Camille Ehlers, and I work alongside Robert on the Road to College and Career team. My role is the Director of Corporate Relations and Career Services, and I'm also equally as excited to introduce this session today virtually. We have a very strong push and programming dedicated to career development for our scholars, and we're excited to launch this department and get some insight from one of our partners with the Federal Reserve today. So after we hear from Jared, we'll go into a question and answer session. So he'll be able to offer some insight into what he discusses in his presentation and some advice for not only our current scholars, but our alumni and their families that I think you'll find really interesting. So just stay tuned for that piece.
Awesome. Thanks, Camille. Yeah, and the purpose of these sessions are to connect parents and scholars with information that will help navigate the college and career journey. So because this is our first one, bear with us as we will be transitioning from images to slides. And so you may get a little bumpy. And so we just ask for your grace with that as we navigate our virtual session. But in addition to that, I'm so excited to welcome Jared Fitzpatrick as our special guest today. Jared leads the Cultural and Diversity Outreach for the Federal Bank Reserve and of Dallas. And his mission is to help people from underrepresented backgrounds to align their skills and passions with their purpose, grow into impactful leaders, and improve their communities. Jared is also the Vice President of User Engagement at Canaris, a Dallas-based startup with an online platform that enables employees to anonymously rate their workplaces on diversity, inclusion, and culture. Prior to these roles, Jared gained 5 years of experience leading organizational transformation while working as a management consultant with PwC and Huron Consulting Group. Jared has always had a heart for service. He is currently a partner with Social Venture Partners, SVP of Dallas, an organization focused on strengthening nonprofits and investing in innovative solutions to address community challenges. He most recently served on the board of the DFW Urban League Young Professionals and was a member of the 2018-2019 Mayor's Star Council class. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Houston and dual master's degree in Health Administration and Business Administration from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Additionally, Jared holds the Program Management Professional certification along with the Senior Professional in Human Resources certification. Jared grew up all over the country, but he definitely considers Dallas his home. So everyone, please help me in virtually welcoming today, Jared Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Camille. So excited to be with you here today. Hopefully you all can hear me well. I am doing this from my home and trying to make sure that the voice carries through, but also that I can be as engaging with you as I were in person. So first thing I always do is to start by giving glory to God, because it's only through His grace and mercy that I'm sitting here with you today. Most people don't know this, but my mother, when she was pregnant with me, the doctors diagnosed me with a rare condition called spina bifida, which typically leaves people with paralysis and brain damage. And it's only because of my parents' faith in God that they decided to go through with the pregnancy. 8 months later, I was born healthy. And so I treat my life as a gift from God, and I take every day as an opportunity to help others. My parents were both born in the South. My dad was from Alabama, my mother was from Georgia. Both of them came from poorer families, but both of their mothers were educators. And so the value of education was something that was instilled with them early on. They both ended up going to college and studying engineering. After graduating, my dad joined the military, and my mother worked in engineering for a few years and then stayed home to take care of me. Because my dad was in the military, we would have to travel to new places for work every few years. So I was born in Ohio, and then we moved to Florida, where my sister was born. From there, we went to Georgia, Alabama, Massachusetts, before finally settling down in San Antonio, Texas. And we now, San Antonio is home for us, and Texas is home for us. When we settled down in San Antonio, I was in my second year of high school, so I was a sophomore. And I had gone to 3 different elementary schools, 3 different middle schools, and 2 different high schools. So I was used to having to adapt to new situations and build relationships with people quickly, which is a skill I still use to this day. And throughout my childhood, my parents had always instilled in me the value of hard work and that you had to work for what you earned. So any chores I did around the house, I would do dishes, I would do cleaning bathrooms, I would clean up the yard, and they would always tell me, that's how you earn your keep around here, that's how you eat. But they would also help me if I needed money to buy things. Well, when I got to my second year of high school, I was about to turn 15 and realized that I could go out and get a real job. So the first place that I worked that hired me was Dairy Queen. And I have a slide up that kind of talks through a little bit of that. And I don't know how to change the slides here. So I'm just gonna go forward with it, and hopefully you guys can see the slide. But it just has all the different logos of the places that I've worked. And so Dairy Queen was my first job. I was making $5.25 an hour, which was a lot of money to me at that time. And I was a cashier. I would clean dishes. I would clean tables. I would make the food. But what I realized was that I was working with people who were 2 or 3 times my age. And I recognized then that that's not what I wanted from my life. And so what I did was I set a goal for what I wanted to be. And at the time, I didn't really have a good idea of what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to do something that was going to allow me to be successful and make money. I wanted to help people. That's always been something that I've cared about. And I thought that being a doctor would be the best of both worlds. And the doctors that I've been closest to up to that point were optometrists, because I wore glasses ever since I was a small child. And so I set a goal of becoming an optometrist. And I didn't really have a lot of examples of what an optometrist looked like. So I just reached out to people that either I'd seen as my doctor or who were just people in my community who were optometrists. And I reached out to their secretaries or just called their offices directly and asked them if I could shadow them. And to my surprise, most of them said yes. And so I was able to go and shadow optometrists and see what they did. It was around this time that I also started learning about what it would take for me to get into college. And because my dad was in the military, I was able to use some of his military benefits to help me with tuition and paying for books. But we still had room and board and things like that to consider. So I started applying to every scholarship that I could think of. The one thing that really helped me around this time was I had several mentors through my church who gave me advice on different scholarships. They also helped me to get letters of recommendation. They would either write them or suggest people that I could get them from. I also had a very helpful college counselor, high school counselor who helped me think about college and the different types of colleges that were out there. And the internet was a thing. This was in 2007, about to be 2008. But the resources that are available now weren't always there. And so I did a lot of research on College Board and sites like that, and ultimately figured that the University of Houston would be the school that would best align with my career goals, because they had an optometry school that was close enough to home that I could still come back if I needed to, and was reasonably cost effective. So I thankfully got a scholarship to go to the University of Houston, and got several other scholarships because I was one of the only students who applied. In fact, I got one through the Veterans of Foreign Wars auxiliary in my hometown in San Antonio. And so there was a group of probably 50 or 60 old white guys who I got to present to about why I deserved this scholarship. And frankly, I don't think that they really wanted me to have it, but because there was very few other people who applied, I ended up getting that. And so that was a couple of $1,000s that went to my education. Now, this part of the story I tell often because it's not always roses when you get to college, and just getting to college is not the end of the game. You have to have the perseverance to make it through. So I came in as a biology major and quickly realized that that was not my calling because I was not doing very well in school. I remember getting my first C after getting mostly A's in high school and realizing that, this wasn't gonna cut it. And so I continued to push through. I went to study groups, but after about a year, I realized that I was out of my depth. And so I had a tough conversation with my parents and with my college counselor at the time about what I needed to do to either get things back on track or to potentially change majors. And so what I decided to do at the time was to pray about it, one, but also to talk to some people who were doing different things around me, and had the opportunity to talk with a local person in my community who was a hospital administrator. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but eventually found out that that was the business side of healthcare. And I thought that sounded pretty cool. And so I changed my major to psychology. I was able to keep the credits that I had gotten from being a biology major, and was able to move forward in my degree. And the one thing that I want to encourage people who are listening to this to do is to not be so concerned about what you're going to do. Just make sure that you're moving forward, and think about education as a platform to help you grow and build your career, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the end all. One thing I forgot to mention was, before I even got to the University of Houston, I took some classes at my local community college because I knew that I would need these prerequisites in order to get into the programs that I wanted to get into at U of H. And it was a lot cheaper than going to the four-year college and taking the classes there. So by the time I made this switch and moved into this new major, I already had enough credits to technically be classified as a junior. And so moving forward, I was able to finish in 3 years as opposed to the typical 4 years that it would take. And that was because of the AP classes I took in high school and the community college classes that I took before I ever went to the 4-year. So after I finished up at U of H, I went to a local company called Labatt Food Service in San Antonio. And I worked there for a year and did supply chain services with them. And then decided to go back and get my master's degree, which thankfully I went to a school in Alabama, and my dad's military benefits were able to pay for a lot of that. That program I credit to exposing me to new opportunities, new career avenues. That was the first time I really found out that a consultant was a career path for me. Up until that point, I was hyper-focused on going to work in a hospital and being an administrator there, but realized that there was an opportunity for me to go and try a bunch of different career opportunities, really, as a consultant, working for different corporations and hospitals. And so I did move back to Texas and moved to Dallas, and started that career at PricewaterhouseCoopers. For the next 3.5 years, I traveled all around the country and worked with different hospitals and healthcare organizations and medical schools, and did these really fun projects where I was able to use my skills that I gained early on in life of building relationships and learning how to communicate well with people, but I also gained new skills that, some of them I learned in college, like time management, but really had not honed as well as I should have. And so I learned a lot about how to manage my own time how to commit to things and be dependable. And if I said I was going to do something, I had to do that. I learned about how to be resourceful, because there were a lot of opportunities where I had to be, that person who was seen as an expert and a trusted advisor. So I had to do my research ahead of time. And, there were a lot of terms that were thrown around that I didn't really understand, but I Googled them and was turning, lemons into lemonade, if you will, and worked a lot on the weekends to know that I was prepared for what would come during that week. So while I was doing that work, which I think a lot of people find in their early to mid 20s, I realized that there was a disconnect between what I was doing and what I truly was passionate about, and found that my passion really lied in helping people like me to figure out their purpose in life and overcome those hurdles that I had tripped over in college and even in high school. And so started thinking more about what could I do that would allow me to be a help to other people and help to people to figure out what their purpose is and how to communicate with others well. And so kind of stumbled into what I now do, which is focused on diversity and inclusion and helping people from different backgrounds and all different types of ethnicities. And so had an opportunity to move into another role at this company called Huron Consulting Group, where they promoted me and gave me a team to work on these different strategy and operations projects, but also allowed me to work with the diversity and inclusion team and a lot of their community affairs initiatives, and really loved doing that work. And so when there became an opportunity for me to stop traveling so much and get off of the road and be full-time here in Dallas, I jumped at that and came over to the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, where I've been for a couple of years. And so, and Robert talked about this, but I primarily focus on our diversity and inclusion and culture initiatives, but I also do a lot around early education for college students, high school students. I do a lot of talks like this. I love doing it. It gives me energy and it gives me purpose, but I also recognize that just by exposing students to some of the opportunities that they may not even know are out there, that I'm effectively helping them to figure out what they may want to do earlier in life. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll talk some more about the resources and different opportunities that there are for you all to learn more about how you can prepare yourself now for the next step. So, with that, I guess I'll open it up for questions and have some things prepared in the future slides. Oh, okay, there we go. I did see you there, Robert.
Yep. Thank you, Jared. Yeah, we did get that slideshow or slide deck up on the screen.
Ooh,
so
great.
We have it up for open discussion, and that great way to kick us off. And I'll hand it over to Camille.
Yeah, thanks again, Jared. I know I read your bio and I had a chance to speak with you. So I had like quick snapshots around your story, and it's truly inspirational. And I think just the drive that you had at every step, you used your resources, you were able to voice your passions and deliver and execute and take advantage of opportunities along the way, I think really stand out to me. So I have some questions for you that maybe someone listening might have thought of, or maybe it's relevant for an alum or for a family member. So I'm gonna kind of hop around. So the first question, I know you talked a lot around like your family support and your network and things that guided you along the way. What advice would you share with someone that is looking for a networking, or looking for a mentor, or looking for opportunities that they don't necessarily feel like exist in their bubble or in their scope? How do you take advantage of or find those opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the first thing I would say is that your number one advocates, mentors, advisors are probably living right now with you, and you may not even recognize that that's the role that they play. But your parents, or whoever you look up to that's there with you, family members, they're the foundation that you build on. So I was very fortunate to have two parents who, had gone through the process of going to college and were able to shepherd me along the way. And there was a lot of things that they didn't know, but they did their best and they researched and they helped me figure things out too. The one other thing that I would tell you is there's no right way to go about this when you're, a young person in high school, but just the same way that I reached out to optometrists and just asked if I could come and shadow them, there's very few people who would say no if you ask them because you want to learn more about what they do. And I think that's oftentimes something that's overlooked, is the power of just picking up the phone and calling people and asking, can I come and talk with you? Or can I come and shadow you? Or can I come volunteer with you? And so sometimes it's just about taking that initiative to go and reach out and find the people that you want in your network. The other thing that I mentioned briefly was that I had some really good mentors in my church. And now I know I mentioned at the beginning of this that faith is a big component of who I am. If that's not a big component of who you are, if you don't go to church, that's fine too. There's other ways that you can get involved with community members, different people around your community who can be seen as leaders. But one of the things that I found to be very useful was just talking to my church leaders, deacons. The person who led my Sunday school at the time was a great mentor for me, and ended up writing one of my recommendations. And so there's lots of people that you may not be thinking about as mentors that would love to help you. They just need to be asked.
Sure. That brings me to another good point, just with Uplift now, the Road to College and Career Team being a new initiative, the opportunity for job shadowing, an opportunity for exploring careers that scholars and have interest in will be highly executed next year. And so we're really looking, that's kind of a plug for my team, because we are looking at ways to offer our current scholars opportunities to get some of that job shadowing, to make some of those connections where they are able to find mentors and to go to different work industries and workspaces and work alongside someone while they're in high school. And I think that's a really, in my own experience, I had to do that on my own. I had to make those connections and ask those questions outside of school. And so Uplift has a really cool space we're in now, because we are able to make the pipeline and offer some of those supports for our scholars. So thinking about like high school, and if you can recall your time in high school, what course or instructor or clubs or organizations did you take advantage of, or maybe you didn't necessarily realize were helping you at the time, but they actually still show up and are still relevant to how where you're at today or at some point in your career?
Okay. So all I was saying was that the teachers who were the hardest on me were actually the ones who I think left the biggest impact. So I had a calculus teacher who was very difficult, and I struggled through her class, but she forced me to be intentional about studying and about taking the time to come in for office hours. And I think that was something that other teachers had let me somewhat skate by in the past. And she did not let me do that. And that was a huge benefit, because she was one of the ones who helped prepare me for what the college coursework was really going to be like. The other teacher I'll point to was one of my English teachers, who I did not like. We did not get along at all. But again, just the work that he poured in to help all of us, not just me, understand how to communicate well with each other. That's one of the biggest things that I do now. I speak all the time. I'm responsible for writing long briefs and just thinking through some of the lessons that he taught me then that I've taken with me and still use today. I know that that was a big influence. But the person I would probably turn to and say that, you know, was one of the largest influences was actually somebody who was not in high school for me, but was in middle school. It was one of my teachers when I was in 5th grade. And, you know, his name was Mr. Rodney Johnson. He was a Black guy. And really, I think the reason why he stuck with me after all this time was because, one, he was very professional and cared about the quality of his teaching, was always very professionally dressed, held his head up high. But two, he instilled the boys of color that there was a responsibility for us to be not just as good, but better than our counterparts, and that it was our responsibility to set the stage for ourselves and to ask for what we wanted. And he always shared with us this quote that is by Henry Ford, which I think is very well, you know, known. But at the time, it was the first time I'd heard it. And it says, you know, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so it was just instilling that mindset of you have to believe in yourself because there may not be anybody else who believes in you. So I would echo that the mindset is incredibly important. And that was a lesson that I learned when I was younger, but it helped to shape the way that I went about things in high school and beyond.
No, definitely. And we found ourselves, you know,
Hopefully you're still with.
Yes, as you know, and touching on that, you know, we're in a place now where, you know, the future is unclear. It's a new challenging space that the country, the nation, the world is in, and we're facing a lot of uncertainty. And
right,
with, you know, the current state, with the pandemic, with education and careers completely shifting and pivoting and adjusting to the time, what advice or where do you pull inspiration from, and how can you kind of apply that to maybe a senior or a college student that is looking at a career or an industry? What can they be doing now to stay committed to the challenge ahead and prepare for a career that may not be something that they're used to in the moment?
Yeah. So one of the key points of research that I've found interesting over the last probably year or so is that we don't even know the jobs that will be the in-demand jobs in 10 years because they haven't been created yet. And so this is a specific note to the students who are in their junior, senior year, who are considering careers and are looking at, you know, job boards that say, you know, you need to become an IT manager or information security or nurse practitioner. Those are all very much needed careers, but there may be some roles that just have not even been invented yet. And so I wouldn't be too worried about lining up exactly what you need to do right now. What I would focus on is getting the skills that you will need that are cross-functional. And so I'm talking about things like time management, communication, resourcefulness. So learning how to use all of your resources. So yes, you can go Google things, but taking online courses like LinkedIn Learning or Coursera or Khan Academy or Udemy, those are great resources that you can learn things now that can be very helpful for you, you know, in whatever field that you end up going into, or just being knowledgeable. But also practicing what it would look like for you to be in a role that you want to be in. So let's say you do know what you want to do, figuring out what types of skills are they going to be looking for. If you're going to be in some role where you're going to be presenting in front of a lot of people, practicing what that presentation style might look like. And the key thing that I wish someone had told me years ago, but I'm just really learning, is the power of your story is incredible. And so learning how to tell your story effectively to people. And I hope that, you know, a lot of the students have already understood, or at least have heard of an elevator pitch, which is that 30-second to a minute pitch of who you are and what your plan is and what you want to do and how that person can help you. But also learning how to tell that longer version of your story, because you never know who might be impacted by that story. And it's so powerful. And so those are some of the things that you can do to plan now. But I'll take it a step further. And for the parents, I would encourage you to support your child in their research and information gathering about colleges. And so further on in this presentation, I have some resources about how to think about, you know, what you want to do for a career, how to prepare for college, how to think about financial aid and getting money for college, because nowadays the number of unskilled jobs is decreasing. You know, 50, 60 years ago, over half of the workforce was unskilled. And when I say unskilled, I mean had less than high school diploma. But that's just not the case anymore. Now it's 15% or less. And so while there still are a lot of jobs that don't require a high school degree, you know, construction workers, medical technicians, electricians, plumbers, they still have, if not, you know, more advanced certification programs or trainings, and they still require a lot of those same skills that you will gain when you go and get higher education. And so there are a lot of things that, you know, parents can do to help their students, but some of it is just being prepared to have the conversation with them, or, you know, doing some of that research about scholarships with them, and sharing that. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Did we want to transition to the next segment with the financial advice for families prepared
Yeah,
for college?
I'm happy to, that's a natural segue there. So I'm happy to share if you want to go to the next slide. All right, so the reason I put this one in here, and this is, you can go back to the last slide, that's fine. Yeah, so the reason I put this one in here is because I really want to drive the point home that education is an enabler for future earning potential, right? So what this graph is showing, this was last updated, I think, in September of 2019, so it's fairly recent. So the unemployment rates and earnings tied to the level of education that you attain. So it goes all the way from, you know, less than a high school diploma up to a doctoral degree. And what you can see is the higher your education, the less likely it is that you'll be unemployed, especially around times like now when there's a lot of uncertainty, unemployment is increasing. People who have bachelor's degrees or higher, or even associate's degrees, they're typically in jobs that are a little bit more stable. They have, you know, typically more benefits like healthcare, sick leave, paid leave, maternity leaves, if that's, you know, something that the employer provides. And so there's a lot more safety in that. 401k is another one. And then on the right-hand side of the graph, it shows the earning potential. And so if you have less than a high school diploma, you're on average making about $500 a week. And you can see that if you get a bachelor's degree, that doubles, right? And so this is not about the individual, it's really about their family and the long-term legacy that they're leaving. Because just think about that extrapolated out over a 30 to 40-year lifespan, which is about how long most people work, if not longer sometimes. And so, I mean, that money that you're making, if when you earn that bachelor's degree, I mean, this is an average. You can make a lot more than that. And so you're setting up your family, your future generations for success. And so I really wanted to just hone in on that and make sure that that was clear. And this is just one way to do that. There's a lot of data out there that shows that once you attain a certain level of education, your earning potential is a lot higher. So we can jump into the resources now. So the next slide, which I'm not quite seeing yet.
Yeah, Jared, we want to touch on the potential careers in those resources to help scholars and parents navigate.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep, I see it.
Great.
I see it.
Yeah,
all right.
If I can comment on the last slide you spoke on.
Oh, please.
Yeah, I really
Please do.
appreciate you sharing that data with us, because I think that really helps put things in perspective. And when you see the numbers, especially as that gradually builds with education, with high school diploma, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, I think if we do hear that, we just hear about it, right? We just hear, hey,
Right.
Associate's degree or some type of college education at the end of the day will most likely benefit you and set you up economically, right? And that comes with opportunities. Even in a time like this, it gives you the options to explore other jobs or to other career opportunities because of that education that was earned. And it really helps see that and see that image, because it helps complement the things that we may hear but we can't see. And so that really helps put things in perspective and to really see how, with the greater of education, how I look at it, more options you have to remain sustainable economically. So thank you for that.
Yep, that's it. That's it. All right, so here are some of the resources, and this is not an exhaustive list. There's tons of stuff out there if you go and look for it. But I wanted to make sure that I highlighted at least a few that I found to be really helpful. So this first slide just talks about resources to identify some potential careers. The first one on this list is called the Junior Achievement Build Your Future app. And this is a link to it. You can go and check it out on your own. It's a website, but it's also an app on your phone. And the way that it works is it has a list of different careers that you can choose from. You can pick any one of those careers, and it will show you the level of education required, how much time it will take to get that education, the cost of that education, depending on whether you stay in state or go out of state. And then ultimately, it will show you how much money you'll likely be making with that career. And then at the end of it, it shows kind of a return on investment calculator, which shows if you go through 8 years of school and spend, $50,000 on an education, but the career you chose only makes $25,000 a year, well, maybe that's not the best career choice, or it might take a lot longer for you to make that level out. But if you did 8 years of school and spent all this money on education, and your career has the potential to pay you $100,000 or $200,000 a year, well, that's a really good return on investment, because you may not be able to make that with other careers in that short amount of time. And so I love that. I love that app. It's very easy to use. You can play around with it. It's free to use. Actually, everything on here that I've given is free to use. And so you can go on there and check that out. The next one is called My Next Move. And this allows you to take a test to identify careers based on your interests. So it's like a personality test, and it'll ask you what type of things you're interested in, what type of career, work environments you would like to have, what you're passionate about. And at the end of it, it'll spit out a few career choices that you can select from. And then you can go out and learn more about those career choices. The reason I like this one is because it gives you a different set of options than you may have thought about before. The third site on here is through the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Again, it's giving you a list of different career options, but it talks about the different types of work environments that you will have, whether it's an office job or you may be out traveling or it may be outside most of the time, the duties that you would be responsible for, and the salary. And this is updated very frequently. And so you can use all these tools hand in hand. I would say try them all out and see which ones you like the best. Share them with other people, and so they can learn from this too. Parents, feel free to go on there and check out the careers that you may have been interested in, or that you think your student might be interested in, or might have the aptitude or capacity for. So that's not even an exhaustive list. There's tons more, but you can just start with those.
Yep, these are great resources, Jared, and I really think
Yeah.
this helps parents and scholars on what they can be doing now, right? And so,
yeah,
regardless of what grade, this isn't just limited to seniors or even juniors, right? I think, you know, when we think about freshmen, sophomore, even those that are in middle school, these are things that they can be utilizing to really explore careers, and even for those younger students, younger scholars, in 2 or 3 years time, right, there will be new jobs, new careers that we're not even thinking about today. But at least this helps them start thinking about what that could look like and what their interests are. So I really do appreciate you sharing these resources. We have a few minutes. I'm not sure if you have to go off or if you can stick around for maybe one question or so.
Let's see. So I am supposed to be somewhere at 2, but I can probably be a little bit late. So we can keep going. The rest of the resources are very self-explanatory like these, so I don't have to walk through all of them. I did add a list of books that are very helpful. So some of them are similar to this. They kind of walk through, what could you be doing? So what color is your parachute? Do what you are 2 that help you identify the types of careers you might be interested in. And then So Good They Can't Ignore You and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People are more around once you get into a job or a career path, here's some things that you can do to make sure that you're successful long term.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but anyways, please, I'm open to ask one more question.
Camille, if it's okay, if I can steal this time to ask.
Yeah, for sure. Please close out.
I'm always curious to hear from professionals, especially from you, Jared, who are in the HR space, human resources space. What are 1 to 2 skills that you have found are crucial to have no matter what career people are looking for, or what kind of job they're looking for? What is that skill set that is desired, that is in demand, regardless of career industry? If you can speak to that, something that can help scholars and parents be thinking about how they can build that skill now that's going to be in demand regardless of career option they pursue.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned a few of them throughout the call, but I'll just really focus in on a couple. So I talked about time management, and really what I mean there is dependability. So it's important that, especially for people of color, showing up on time is not enough. You got to show up a few minutes early if possible. Make sure that you're prepared whenever you do show up, and that's part of time management. So it's doing the work ahead of time so that when you actually get there, you're able to contribute. The other piece of that is with dependability is do what you say you're going to do. So I've had a lot of people that I've coached throughout the years who have had struggles because they committed to doing a lot and then did not set the appropriate expectations and weren't able to deliver on what they said they were going to do. So make sure that if it's going to take you, a week to do something, that you account for that and say, hey, I can't have this to you by tomorrow. It's going to take me a week because of these other responsibilities that I have. And then make sure that you're delivering on that timeline or earlier if possible. Make sure that you are proactive. Think about how can you prepare now for something that may be happening a month from now or 2 months from now, because that will show people who are in charge or leaders over you that you're thinking bigger than just your one area. The second skill that I'll talk about is resourcefulness. I've highlighted this a few times, but I really can't stress it enough that there's people who come to me or to others with problems, and that's all they come with. And those type of people I don't think of as very resourceful, because what I really want is don't just identify the problem, but think about some solutions. So when you come to me, it's, hey, I figured out this problem that we have, and here are some ways that we can fix it. That way, it's not about, us having to stop everything that we're doing. It's, oh, okay, well, let's go and fix the problem. Don't give up too easily. I know sometimes there are tasks that may seem to be impossible or very hard, but the more resourceful you are and can think of another option, the more opportunity you'll have to push things forward. And even when everybody else is giving up, you'll be that person who can continue moving forward. And then again, I talked about, there's been a lot of times where I was in meetings or in conversations where people were talking, in what sounded like a different language because they used so many acronyms and things that were very specific to their area. And I would take notes. And after the conversation was over, I would go and Google things so that the next time I talked with them, or if I had to present to that group again, that I knew what they were talking about. And so sometimes you're not going to be able to Google things and you do have to ask, but as much as possible, let's figure out if you can find it out on your own, because that just shows that you're taking that extra step. Then the third and probably the most important thing is communication. Just like I'm doing now, you have to be able to articulate your thoughts clearly and help people to understand why you're coming from a specific position and persuade them to understand why they may need to be able to be flexible and change the way that they think. But more than just talking, it's also about listening and listening to understand their perspective. Because if you're just listening to respond, it normally doesn't help you build that relationship. And ultimately, a lot of this just comes back to maintaining good relationships with people so that they trust you. And when you have that trust that you can build, you can accomplish all kinds of things. So those are the three that I'll probably lean on the most or look for the most.
Great. No, thank you for sharing that. And again, we'll close on that note. And I just want to send a big thank you for joining us today and offering your time. This information that you shared is crucial and it's going to be so helpful for our families, our parents and scholars. We will share these resources with them. And so if you're watching on YouTube, please look in our description. Yeah. We'll have these links and information available to you. And be looking out for our next Parent Connect session. And really hope you enjoyed the information that was shared with you by Jared. Thank you again, Jared.
Thank you, Jared.
And just one quick thing before we wrap up. Yep. And I meant to talk about this during the call, but there's a quote that I always either end with or articulate sometime through the call. But it's a quote by Greg Reed, and it says, "A dream when written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal when broken down into steps becomes a plan, and a plan backed by action makes your dreams come true." And so I really encourage people to don't just talk about what you want to do, write it down and set a date for the day that you want to accomplish that goal, and then figure out what steps do I need to take from day one, which is today, to the day when I said I'm going to accomplish that goal to make it a reality. And you'll be surprised how much easier it will be to accomplish those goals when you just take it day by day and work on it little by little. And so that's what I'll leave with. Again, I'm more than happy to be a resource for anyone and answer questions. So please feel free to reach out and connect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.